But let me
Right.
just explain to your question that you had right now about function modules and such kind of functions in general,
Mm-hmm.
so I can give you the better context. So function module is declared in SAP globally. So anytime we as developers, we go to SE37, there's a transaction for creation of function modules specifically. And whenever we create a function module with some functionality, whatever functionality, you as Rakesh, who is having access to the same SAP system where I am, you can
Mm-hmm.
use the same function module in your programs if it's going to help your programs to do the same functionality if you wish so. So this is meant to when I said globally, you can use these functions in any programs. That's what it means. Does it
Right.
answer this question?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And I asked
This.
another question. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah. To give you a bigger picture. So there are more, um, we call it subroutines like this. So this function module is a subroutine. So we have subroutines. It means that there is a code inside of that subroutine that you can repeatedly use. Okay. So you can use subroutines like function modules. There
Mm-hmm.
are such subroutines that are called methods. Okay, so in object-oriented programming,
Right.
that's the
Yes.
same thing. It does the same thing, but you have to firstly create a class and then call a method. But method is actually the same as a function module. You can use it globally anywhere in SAP system if it's done properly.
So
Also,
hold on. So did you say method and function module are the same?
okay, it's not the same in terms of a technical from a technical point of view because you have to firstly create a class and then you have to create a method in a way that you can call it the
Mm-hmm.
same way as function module. So for example, in not sure like how deeply you understand of object-oriented programming, but let me just give you that example. If you create a class and you create a method and you set it up as a static method,
Mm-hmm.
then it means that you can, from a functional point of view, it's actually going to be the very same purpose like as a function module because you can call immediately the subroutine of a static method. Okay.
Okay.
Of course,
Okay.
if you will create instance methods and then suddenly we will have to talk about polymorphism and such kind of object-oriented things. Okay, we don't go in this direction, but just to give you higher level overview of what
Mm-hmm.
are the subroutines, that's actually what it is. Okay,
Okay.
repeatable functionality inside of that subroutine. For example, function module or a method.
Okay.
Another thing is form. Okay, so probably you still see forms in SAP. Even in these days when there is S4 and everything, like many people, majority of SAP consultants, they still have to do ECC stuff. So there is another uh, subroutine type, for example, form. The difference between methods, function modules, comparing to forms, is that forms are usually declared inside of a report, inside of a program. So
Mm-hmm.
if you create a subroutine inside of form, usually is used only inside of the program. So it means that if I create a form inside of my Z program, you will not be able to use it in your Z program because it's not globally accessible like function modules or classes or
Okay.
methods.
And how important for us, like, for people like me to understand all these subroutines, forms, methods, or, all these things to understand debugging? Are we going to use those terms or those programs or in our debugging?
It's used almost on every place.
Okay.
I
How
mean,
much
when you get to
how much
debug,
deep we have to go in this?
I don't think you as a consultant, you have to go that deep into this
Mm-hmm.
because anything that is happening inside of a subroutine is going to be pure ABAP. Okay, so
Okay.
actually
Right.
you will have to understand like what happens inside of that subroutine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a clue what a subroutine is, Then you
Mm-hmm.
may be surprised, like, okay, like why am I so deep in a call stack? What is really happening? And
Right.
like what's the point? The only thing that if you know that there are subroutines and which contains a repeatable part of the code, and you can and subroutine can call another subroutine. So for example, function module can call a method. Inside of a method, they can call another method. So you can go deeper and deeper inside of the execution of a program.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the big picture, what you actually have to understand in order to be able to have better clue of what is going on inside of a debug mode.
Okay. I have a question now before I
Sure.
forget this. So, are we going to get access for the system where we can go and we can try to debug something? Are you going to provide us the access or any ABAP system?
In this free community, right?
Yes.
So not really.
Okay.
Most of the consultants, they already have access to the SAP system where they work. So most of them, they have like some sandbox system or something where they are trying these things by themselves.
Okay. Okay. And another question which I posted on the episode 3 as well as my comment.
Mhm.
So as you rightly said that there is a function module subroutine which is being used by different programs. So different programs are using are being used by different teams. There are multiple teams, right? There is a finance team, there is a SD team, there is a MM team, but maybe one function module which was created can be used in different teams, right?
Correct.
So let's say if we as a I'm in SAP SD, so I feel a need to change that function module to to get certain result which is not there today. If I change that program, that will impact the other teams also, right?
Correct.
Okay. So in that case, what is, I mean, I have seen that scenario in the company. If we are going to change a function module, we have to catch up. We have to talk to the other team who created it, and to change it to our purpose. I think we have to create a new function module instead of changing the basic one, right?
Um, okay, is a good question and a
Mm-hmm.
tricky question as well, because
Mm-hmm.
this function module most probably was created because of some general purpose that was supposed to be like, so that function module was supposed to be used on multiple places. That's usually when it makes sense to create a function module for such
Mm-hmm.
scenarios as you are saying. And then what can happen that you in a specific team in a specific module suddenly you need to have a different variation of the logic that needs to happen for a special case. Okay.
Right.
So there are multiple ways what we can do. Like so, one of them is actually do what you just told me, to do a copy
Right.
of that function module and just do the change that you need to do. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
is going to work for this specific scenario. However, there are drawbacks of this. Let's say in the future, this common functionality needs to be updated for all the functionalities that for all the modules or whatever that are using this function module. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what's going to happen? They are going to change the original one. Hopefully they will remember that okay there was some copy of this function module, so hopefully they will not forget about it and do the change also on a second place.
Right.
Okay, if this is going to be a procedure, maybe another team they will say okay but we need also another variation of this program, so they create a third one, fourth one, and then kind of like the whole point of the function module disappears and you suddenly have lots of versions of the same thing. Okay, so it's a way but not ideal.
Okay.
Usually what we are trying to do with in such case, we and I don't know how technical you are in this already, but what we can do, and that's usually my first choice to do such change, is that I add a new parameter into a function module It is
Mm-hmm.
going to be optional, so it is not going to influence other function modules. Otherwise, if I wouldn't create a parameter that is
Okay.
optional, it's going to dump everywhere. Okay, so it
Okay.
has to be optional. So I add a new parameter, um,
Like
and
if or
then
if and what statement, that's what you have to give.
and then inside of the function module, I say that if this new parameter contains some value, then do this. Okay, so
Okay.
suddenly you end up having more ifs inside, but it's not going to happen. Like the scenario before is not going to happen, and also this way you will not influence other function modules working in other modules.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I thought, we can create a copy, but I think that goes by scenario to scenario, company to company. It could be different. But adding a parameter, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good choice so that everybody is using the same program, same subroutine or routine, and then, they can go to the different parameters if,
Correct.
like it's working in certain
So
ways. Yeah.
that's the ideal solution that we see, and I was using as well when we needed to do such changes. There is a third one that I still don't recommend, but at least to let you know, like what sometimes developers do when they need to change such functionality. Uh, they many times also just leave this one function module because of not having copies from the first scenario that I told you that is not ideal. But they change the logic of existing function module and they try to
Hmm.
make it work for this scenario. What can happen and what is happening many times is that they change the functionality, they test it for your scenario, but they forgot like what other many scenarios were working for this original function module, and it may backfire. It may stop. It may create the problems in other scenarios. So
Correct,
that's
correct.
why ideally the scenario that I told you in a second option, create a new a
Parameter.
parameter if and just add a new part of the code inside of this if
Right, right, right.
condition.
Perfect, perfect.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.